Let's just start off with Tucker. But there is something particularly for you, Binder, and I'm sure you'll notice it once you see it. Yeah, one of the Booker clips. So Tucker Carlson has been stoking racial animus towards Ketanji Brown Jackson in the lead up to the confirmation hearings and during the confirmation hearings. Here he is last night with the finale, the grand culmination of all of his racist commentary as her questioning period comes to a close. Tucker Carlson last night on the Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson.
As if this country's core institutions have not been degraded or diminished enough with pregnant flight suits and FBI that behaves like Nancy Pelosi's Praetorian Guard, as if that weren't bad enough, Joe Biden announced in January his plan to choose the next Supreme Court justice on the basis of appearance. The Supreme Court. You never thought that would happen. Sociology.
Appearance. On the basis of appearance. This is a way for Tucker Carlson, one, to like trivialize and present having a black person on the court as some sort of just like aesthetic choice, as opposed to one that brings experience and one that has a lot of weight. And he's later in the clip, he's going to talk about gender and appearance. Notice that he doesn't mention the fact that Trump's recent Supreme Court appointment was a woman, and he made that declaration before nominating Amy Coney Barrett. But regardless, continue.
Technology department may be, your company perhaps, but the Supreme Court really matters. What does appearance have to do with ability or fealty to the Constitution? Joe Biden never explained. He did indicate, to be fair, that he would prefer a lawyer for the job, maybe even a clever one. But mostly he said he wanted a black woman, genetics being the single most important factor in what we used to call judicial temperament. How does that work exactly? How do genes determine your ability as a Supreme Court justice or a surgeon or an airline?
This is, again, his dipping his toe into eugenics, or not, but like basically attributing race to genealogy, and that's just another way to just steer people towards Charles Murray racism.
As if we're going after genes right now, and like not using this as a proxy for a background and perspective.
Right.
Pilot or anything else? We would love to hear Joe Biden explain that, but he didn't. Instead, he embarked on a predictably short nationwide search for such a candidate and located in the end a person called Ketanji Brown Jackson. Her confirmation hearings continue today for the second day. Not surprisingly, given how she got this job, most of the talk in Washington was not about what she's done, how she thinks, what she's like as a person, but instead about how she looks. It's not shallow or anything. Here's the shallowest of all, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey.
I could not stop being just joyous that you were sitting in my office.
Is there any...
Oh, sorry.
Never had this moment before.
I grew up in a small black church. No, you didn't. Another lecture about the black experience from a blue-eyed Yale graduate who in fact grew up in an all-white town, the son of IBM executives. Is there anyone on this planet phonier than Cory Booker? To her credit, Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't seem quite so fraudulent. That would be impossible. But she does, and this is the key, share a resume that is strikingly similar to Cory Booker's. Daughter of academics, graduate of Harvard College and Harvard Law School, on the board of the single wokest day school in Washington, D.C., et cetera, et cetera. You know exactly how that story turns out. Because in the end, when they tell you you're getting a black nominee, they're not talking about the son of a maid and a farm worker from Pinpoint, Georgia. In fact, we already have a Supreme Court justice like that. His name is Clarence Thomas. He is a great man, even if no one in Washington will acknowledge that. No, what they mean when they tell you you're getting a black Supreme Court justice is that you're getting yet another Democratic Party robot with the same rigid and totally predictable views as your average professional class white liberal, but who happens to be tanner than Joe Biden. So identical to everyone else in power, just a different shade.
All right. So there are a few things happening here. One, he's reducing race to some sort of like aesthetic quality, like akin to if you're a model or if you're a person who, I don't know.
I only nominate cool people to the Supreme Court.
Right.
Backwards cap wearers only.
Right. If you wear a leather jacket, you're in. And two, I can't decide how he feels about some of these credentials. AOC is a bartender, so she's unqualified to be a member of Congress. But because Ketanji Brown Jackson's parents were educated in the way and had all the credentials that he says AOC doesn't have, which makes her unqualified, or in terms of her background, to be a member of Congress. Those are used as a way to cast aspersions on KBJ.
I like how his ultimate argument was that she and also Cory Booker are not black enough. Yeah. That, that they're, basically that they're Oreos. And, it's funny because, like, you're right. Like, what is the qualification that would make it okay to nominate them to, or nominate her to the Supreme Court? It seems to be kind of a mixed bag. Like, if it's going to be a black person, it has to be, well, Republican would be helpful, but Clarence Thomas has to fit this kind of very specific stereotype of a black person in his mind, like pulling himself up from his bootstraps to see that he is in fact Republican. But, I think ultimately his point is well taken, I guess, or you can argue that, like, that is the reason why he used the word appearance and not race to begin with, because his overall argument is that she simply appears to be black, but the things that he would argue makes someone black, like essentially growing up in poverty, is what he's arguing. It's not something that she has experience with. And if we're going to deliver like a leftist critique, frankly, you could deliver a similar one, that this is a way to appeal to a certain type of liberal, neoliberal politics that presumes to add diversity simply by diversity of, gender, diversity of race, without any kind of like diversity of experience that goes along with those things usually, but using those identity factors as like a stand-in for the experience that one would most likely have as a member of the black race or a member of an oppressed class. But, I can only imagine his other coverage was that she was simply too black before this part. It's a very funny. I love Tucker Carlson's show, because Tucker Carlson is like the ultimate arbiter on blackness.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, Tucker.
It's the bow tie. That made him.
He's retired that. Please.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, Tucker's a guy who, him and his staff they like to mimic a sort of leftish sounding like class politics in moments like this, where they want to like sort of like smuggle in, like, when they're really just being racist. But of course, like, there's no real like those sorts of class concerns. He forgets those immediately. And when he talks about someone like Ilhan Omar, for instance, and then it's about how she wants to hate America and how we have a right to preserve our heritage.
Well, I mean, those sorts of class concerns are just, as people have pointed out when they're talking about like the acceptance rate for places like Harvard, they are a form of affirmative action. And we could talk about why the fact that the majority of our politicians do have a very, very similar resume, even if that resume starts when they get to like college and grad school and they're going to the same schools, etc. But that's not the kind of affirmative action that they're interested in, because that's just the normal way things are supposed to work, because it's been mapped onto like a fake meritocracy. The kind of affirmative action that people are actually, people like Tucker Carlson are actually interested in like heightening up and exposing as like the bad kind, is the kind where, somebody from that same world who happens to be a person of color or LGBTQ, gets a job that in their mind was supposed to belong to like a white man.
Yep.
This isn't a sociology department at Howard University. This is the Supreme Court. It's important.